At 25, I was accepted into Stanford for my postgraduate studies. I quit my receptionist job, ready to start a new chapter in life. But when I woke up one morning, I found myself back in secondary school. Our form tutor was Mr. Wilfred Lockwood, who taught physics. Because I was rebellious in school, he always saw me as a thorn in his side, constantly finding ways to make trouble for me. As soon as I entered the classroom, he zeroed in on me. "Paula Sumner, why are you wearing earrings? You're a student. Take them off." I touched my earlobes. They were indeed quite flashy, so I obediently removed them. Perhaps because he didn't expect me to comply so easily, Mr. Lockwood was taken aback. His anger subsided somewhat, though he still struggled to contain it. Through gritted teeth, he said, "Let's start the lesson." After all these years, I felt a bit nostalgic. After class, my desk mate Gladys Lamb looked at me incredulously. "Paula, I can't believe you didn't argue with old Locke. So many girls in our class wear earrings, but he only picked on you." What a pain. I smiled. Now, all of this seemed trivial to me. Because I only had one goal, to get into Stanford. After a day of diligent studying, just before the evening self-study session, someone called my name from outside the classroom. "Paula." I looked up to see Barnaby Landon, my boyfriend from secondary school. He was the type who never missed a chance to fight or smoke. I only dated him because I was rebellious back then. Later, when we were at different universities, he cheated on me after just 2 months, getting together with a senior girl. Now, seeing him only made me feel physically uncomfortable. "Come on, let's go to the internet cafe," he called out to me. I kept my head down, ignoring him, my eyes fixed on the maths test paper in front of me. The last question. I couldn't solve it. I grabbed the paper and turned to place it in front of the boy sitting behind me. "This question, what's the range of values for A?" The boy paused for a moment, then replied in a cool voice, "Less than -1. His name was Rodney Quartermain. That year, he ranked first in the city and went to Harvard. How foolish I was back then to waste such an excellent academic resource. I smiled. "Could you walk me through the process?" He looked at me silently for a few seconds. Unlike Barnaby, Rodney was the type of boy with a calm demeanor. His skin was fair, his lips a pale pink, and his eyes carried a distant look. He lowered his gaze, his long eyelashes casting faint shadows. "I didn't hear a word he said." "Do you understand now?" he asked as he finished the last stroke. I took the paper without asking. "I'll think about it some more." By now, Barnaby had long gone. "Why didn't you go with him?" Rodney suddenly spoke. I was taken aback, then realized he was referring to Barnaby. I slowly leaned closer to him. He instinctively leaned back, furrowing his brow. "Mr. Brainiac, I'll let you in on a secret." I lowered my voice. "I'm aiming for Stanford." As I returned home from evening study hall, I had barely opened the door when a glass shattered at my feet. My stepfather glared at me coldly. "Give back the money you stole from me." I was stunned for a moment. Seeing my mother standing silently with her head down, I suddenly remembered. Earlier, when my exam results had slipped, Mum had secretly given me some money to find a tutoring service. But my stepfather had discovered the missing funds. Because he had always been against spending money on my tutoring, and Mum was afraid he'd get angry and violent, she told him I had taken it myself. At the time, I didn't explain. I had a huge row with my stepfather and ran away for 2 weeks. Ironically, they never looked for me, and I fell behind in my studies as a result. Later, when Mum got pregnant, I never set foot in that house again until I got into Stanford for my master's and my stepfather asked to borrow money. I took a deep breath, opened my phone, and transferred the money back. "There, I've returned it," I said flatly. My stepfather was taken aback. After confirming the amount, he still couldn't resist threatening me, "If there's a next time, I'll break your legs." I ignored him. Calmly walking past my guilt-ridden mother, I pushed open my bedroom door. Then I opened my notebook and reviewed the day's incorrect answers. That night, I fell asleep feeling deeply satisfied. The next day, as I walked into the classroom, the noisy chatter of my classmates suddenly ceased. All eyes turned to me. As I made my way to my seat, Gladys Lamb's jaw nearly hit the floor. "Paula, what's gotten into you?" You've cut your hair, you're not wearing makeup, and you're in uniform? I calmly sat down, flipped my shoulder-length bob, and winked at her. How do I look? Well, you look good, but that's all that matters then. Suddenly remembering something, I turned and tapped on Rodney Quartermain's desk. He looked up, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Hey, Brainbox, I figured out that problem from yesterday. Thanks for your help. No problem, he replied coolly, lowering his head to continue his work. Trust the SWAT not to waste a single minute. I turned back and resumed revising. A week passed like this. People's reactions to my change went from initial shock to acceptance. Even Wilfred Lockwood didn't bother me as much anymore. But that didn't mean he left me entirely alone. One day, during class, Lockwood summoned me to his office. Do you know why I've called you here? Lockwood asked. No, sir. He frowned and pulled out a bouquet of red roses from under his desk. The color was vivid and eye-catching. These were delivered to the school but intercepted by the porter. Barnaby Landon from 6B bought them, said they were for his girlfriend, Paula Sumner from 12B. I felt a headache coming on. Lockwood slammed his hand on the desk. Always up to no good. Did you come to school to date? I'm calling your parents in. I'll break up with him right away, can't we just dash? No. Left with no choice, I had to call my mom in. Because of what happened last time, she felt guilty and didn't scold me, just repeatedly urged me to focus on my studies. After the parent meeting, Lockwood sent me home to reflect for a week. This was troublesome. As I packed my bag in the classroom, my mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do. The only person in class I got on well with was Gladys Lamb, but she wasn't exactly studious either. My gaze fell on Rodney Quartermain, head down, engrossed in his book. Hey, Brainbox. I tapped his desk and held out a piece of paper. He looked up, utterly perplexed. I smiled sweetly at him. Fancy swapping numbers? Neither my mom nor I mentioned anything to my stepdad about it. During the day, I went out as usual to study at the city library, grabbing a quick bite outside before returning home in the evening. This went on for 2 days, and Rodney Quartermain hadn't sent me a single message. I asked if anything was happening at school, but he didn't reply to that either. I strongly suspected he wasn't checking his phone at all. So that evening, after the study session ended, I waited at the school gates and intercepted him. Hey, Brainiac, do you ever check your phone? I asked. Rodney didn't even look at me. Nothing's happened, he said. I was taken aback, then realized he was answering the message I'd sent earlier. So you just don't reply? I asked. He really was energy efficient. I followed him onto the tube. Can't you be a bit less cold? I prodded. I'm not being cold, he replied. The tube was packed, and we could only stand in the corner of the carriage. I tried to make conversation. Where are you thinking of applying? Harvard? He hummed in agreement. Not Stanford? I smiled. Harvard's fine too. You can show me around the Harvard dining hall, and I'll show you Stanford's. Rodney stared at me, his pale eyes full of confusion. We'd get told off, he said. This guy had absolutely no sense of humor. As the tube reached our stop, I lost my balance and stumbled forward, crashing into his chest. A fresh, minty scent enveloped me. Without thinking, I blurted out, "You smell really nice." Rodney tensed up, gripping my shoulders to steady me. You have a boyfriend, he said, frowning deeply. Mind your behavior. I was stunned for a moment, then laughed. You mean Barnaby? We've already broken up. We'd split up for good the day he bought those roses. Rodney was still frowning, not saying anything. After we left the station, I continued walking with him. After a while, he asked, "Do you live around here?" Finally, he asked. I shook my head, smiling. Rodney looked utterly perplexed, as if his brain CPU was overloaded, completely unable to understand my behavior. I just wanted to spend a bit more time with you, I said softly in the gentle evening breeze, calling him by his name for the first time. Rodney. Coming home late, I was unsurprisingly scolded by my stepfather. After berating me, he turned on my mom. When she gets into some rubbish university, I won't give her a single penny, he shouted. I smirked coldly. I didn't need his money anyway. If I got into Stanford, the school would offer a £5,000 scholarship. With some part-time work during uni, I'd have enough for tuition and living expenses. I didn't argue with him, just calmly walked back to my room. Closing the door, I finally had a moment to breathe. Outside the window, the night was deep, a crescent moon hanging coldly in the treetops. At 17, I couldn't understand my mother's weakness or my hatred for my stepfather's words and actions. My teenage world was full of screams and roars, and rebellion pushed to the extreme. As I grew older, I saw more of the world, met more people, gradually became calmer, and came to terms with my original family. At 25, Paula Sumner was unbeatable. My phone suddenly lit up. A message from Rodney Quartermain, "Are you home?" He hadn't spoken to me in days. I didn't expect him to message first. In the dark room, only the cold white light from the phone screen glowed. I suddenly felt a bit of warmth. Me, yes. After a moment, I added, "Thanks." I thought he might be confused or ask why I was thanking him. But he said nothing, just replied with one word, "Good." Typical of his style. The weekend finally came to an end, and I was able to return to school at last. Gladys Lamb pulled me aside to gossip about our classmates, and I responded half-heartedly. "Rodney Quartermain." She began. I turned my head sharply. "What about him?" The prettiest girl from class 11B confessed to him. I was taken aback. "But he rejected her," Gladys said, sounding disappointed. "He said something like, 'I'm sorry, but I don't want anyone to distract me from my studies.'" I couldn't help but laugh. That was so typical of him. I sneaked a glance behind me. He was bent over his desk, writing something. From this angle, I could only see his long eyelashes and the sharp bridge of his nose. He had only looked up at me once when I entered the classroom. He hadn't said a word to me since. That's what a true academic star is like. I should learn from him. That evening during study hall, Mr. Lockwood called me to his office. "Do you know why I've called you here?" he began with his usual opening line. "You haven't been in contact with that Barnaby Landon again, have you?" I shook my head vigorously. "I've noticed some changes in you lately. Your attitude towards your studies has improved. Keep it up, and don't get involved in any more nonsense." Having finished his lecture, he waved his hand, dismissing me. As I turned to leave, I looked up and saw Rodney Quartermain. He was standing a short distance away, talking to teachers from other departments, apparently discussing a competition problem. I gave him a brief glance before turning to leave. As I reached the bottom of the school building, I heard hurried footsteps behind me. I turned around to see Rodney striding towards me. "Finished your discussion?" I asked. He nodded. The air fell silent between us. We walked side by side for a while before he suddenly spoke, "Paula." I think it was the first time I'd ever heard him say my name. Mr. Lockwood can be quite stern. I was taken aback, instantly understanding his implication. "You weren't worried about him telling me off, were you?" He hesitated, averting his gaze. "No." I smiled, pressing my lips together. What an awkward and stubborn teenage boy. "Rodney," I said. He looked up at me. "You're running hard ahead of me, but one day, I'll catch up to you." A week flies by quickly, and soon it's time for the monthly exams. The exams are spread over 2 days. I perform well on the first day. In the evening, I return home, quickly review my notes, and turn in early. The next day, I set off for school in high spirits. Little did I know, I'd be ambushed halfway there. I frown at the sight of several rough-looking girls before me. They seem familiar, though I can't recall their names. Likely friends I met through Barnaby. The ringleader, aggressive in her stance, demands, "Paula, Barnaby's been so good to you. Why are you giving him the cold shoulder?" So they've come to defend Barnaby's honor. "We've already broken up," I state plainly. "Who do you think you are to break up with him?" I glance at my phone. Time is running short. I try to sidestep them, not wanting to prolong this confrontation, but they block my path. Where do you think you're going? I can't help but laugh bitterly. If you're so concerned, why don't you date him yourself? What's the matter, Barnaby not interested in you? It seems I've struck a nerve. Her face contorts with anger. I press on, if he's not keen, maybe try harder and perhaps. Slap. My cheek stings as my face is whipped to the side. She hit me? Adrenaline surges through my body. Exam forgotten, I swing my bag and grapple with the group. Outnumbered, I'm quickly pinned to the ground, unable to move. After what feels like an eternity, a passerby scares them off. Should we call the police? The kind stranger asks. I shake my head. I sprint the rest of the way, but I'm still 5 minutes late. To make matters worse, I run into the headmaster at the school gates. With each word of his lecture, my heart sinks further. Finally, he finishes and allows me to proceed to the exam. I dash to the exam room only to be stopped by the invigilator. What are you doing, miss? I'm here for the exam. Suddenly, a woman's voice booms over the PA system, echoing through the exam hall. 15 minutes after the start of the exam, late candidates are prohibited from entering. I freeze on the spot. Miss? I snap back to reality and respond flatly, it's nothing. As the exam ended, I returned to the classroom. Gladys Lamb noticed me. Paula, didn't you come for the morning exam? Why is your uniform so dirty? I casually took off my uniform jacket, I was late. Rodney Quartermain, sitting behind me, kept staring at me. His intense, emotionless gaze made me uncomfortable. I turned around, resting my arm on his desk, half-jokingly, was the exam difficult? He continued staring at me, saying nothing. My smile gradually faded. Not difficult, he replied coolly, then lowered his head to revise for the afternoon exam. I suddenly felt awful. The boasts I had once made in front of him now seemed as ridiculous as hot air. During the afternoon exam, my mind wandered. As soon as the exam finished, I rushed out of the exam hall first. The evening sky was darkening, and the hazy glow in the distance made my head ache. With each step, my anger intensified. I stormed into the internet cafe where Barnaby Landon and I often went. On a weekday, it wasn't too crowded. I quickly found the gang leader who had cornered me this morning in a corner on the second floor. She was alone, wearing headphones and shouting at her gang teammates. I tapped her on the shoulder. Who the bloody hell tapped me? She turned around, surprised to see me. Come on, let's have a chat about life. When I emerged from the toilet cubicle, my school uniform was even dirtier. 2 fresh scratches adorned my face. Still, I looked more presentable than the person lying on the floor. I washed my face and left the internet cafe. Night had fallen completely, and my phone was full of missed calls. From Mom, Wilfred Lockwood, Gladys Lamb. I glanced at them briefly before locking the screen. Feeling incredibly frustrated, I hesitated for a moment before walking into a corner shop and buying a pack of cigarettes. I sat on a bench outside the park and lit my first cigarette. Truth be told, I despised the smell of smoke. My biological father was a heavy smoker and died of lung cancer. But during the most stressful times of my A-levels, I picked up smoking. I quit soon after, though, and hadn't smoked in ages. My fingers trembled slightly as I lit the second cigarette. Each drag made me feel sick. As I was lighting the third, I saw Rodney Quartermain through the haze of smoke. For some reason, my first reaction was panic. After a few seconds of eye contact, I took another drag, steeling myself. Well, now in his eyes, I wasn't just skipping exams, but a troublemaker who fights and smokes. This thought oddly made me feel more at ease. I tilted my chin up at him. Well, if it isn't Mr. Brainiac. What a coincidence. He slowly walked towards me, slightly furrowing his brow, probably unaccustomed to the smoke. Rodney looked down at me. Everyone's been looking for you. Why is your phone off? I was taken aback, fumbling for my phone, must have died. Silence fell between us. Rodney stood in front of me, showing no intention of leaving. I finally lost patience. Aren't you going home? He stared at me, still with that calm, emotionless gaze. Suddenly, I felt angry. What, you just enjoy watching me make a fool of myself? As soon as I said it, I saw a flicker of sadness in his eyes. He lowered his gaze and handed me a bag, some medicine for you. Then he paused before speaking again. Paula. The night breeze carried his clear, spring-like voice. If you're upset, you can talk to me. I froze for a moment. The night breeze made my eyes sting. I instinctively lowered my head, my vision gradually blurring. Something welled up from my eyes and fell onto the back of my hand, cold and wet. The sound of a zipper came from above, and the next second, darkness covered my eyes, my nose filled with a pleasant minty scent. Rodney Quartermain had draped his jacket over my head. I didn't want to cry. This was just the natural reaction of 17-year-old Paula Sumner's body. But I still cried, tears flowing unstoppably in the darkness. Living life again, I wasn't afraid of family hurt, teachers' abuse, or troublemaking students. I only feared facing the future, still powerless, regrets remaining regrets, dreams becoming empty talk. In the cool autumn night, I hugged myself tightly, through the jacket, as if making a vow to the person in front of me, yet also talking to myself. Rodney Quartermain, next time, I'll definitely catch up to you. In the darkness, I couldn't see his expression, but I heard his soft reply. All right. That night, I didn't say anything more. Rodney Quartermain didn't ask either. He just quietly kept me company until the last glimmer of starlight faded away. When I got home, the house was in chaos. My stepfather's roars and curses filled the small house. Yet, at the center of this storm, I felt oddly calm. The next day at school, as expected, I got another scolding from Wilfred Lockwood. Perhaps considering the changes I'd made recently, he didn't send me home, only assigning me a 2,000-word reflection to write. Back in the classroom, Gladys Lamb pulled me aside, asking questions. Learning I only had to write a reflection, she sighed in relief. Don't be late next time. I nodded, then turned to tap on Rodney Quartermain's desk. Thank you. He looked up at me, responding seriously for the first time. No need. During the dinner break, I was about to go to the office to submit my reflection when someone blocked me at the classroom door. Paula Sumner. It was Barnaby Landon. After what happened last time, I was disgusted not only by his cheating but also by his group of friends. I ignored him, trying to sidestep around. But he grabbed me. Paula, I know Meredith Newbolt gave you trouble. It took me a while to match that name with the tough girl leader. I'm sorry, he apologized. That was all her own doing, it had nothing to do with me. I still like you, let's get back together? I looked at him coldly. Let go. Give me another chance. Barnaby was strong, and I couldn't shake him off. Let go. No. Suddenly, a figure rushed from behind, bringing a gust of wind, violently pushing Barnaby away. Barnaby stumbled back. You bastard. Seeing who stood in front of me, Barnaby and I were both stunned. Rodney Quartermain? The top student in our year. Of course Barnaby knew him too. What's it to you when I'm talking to my girlfriend? We've already broken up, I said coldly. Barnaby was taken aback, then became furious, moving to grab me again. Once more, Rodney blocked him. Seeing the two about to clash, I grabbed Rodney's uniform. Don't, you can't beat him. Before I could finish, they were already grappling with each other. But the scene was completely opposite to what I had imagined. Rodney instantly pinned Barnaby to the ground. So the top student was also a top fighter? In the end, it was some boys returning from dinner who pulled them apart. Rodney's face was also bruised, but not as badly as Barnaby's. Someone must have notified the teachers, and we were all taken away. In the office, the head of discipline wore a grim expression, with Mr. Lockwood and Barnaby's form tutor standing to the side. What time do you think it is? Fighting! Explain yourselves. I immediately spoke up. It was between me and Barnaby, it has nothing to do with Ron. He was harassing a female classmate, Rodney said calmly, his face expressionless. The head of discipline turned to me. Is that true? I nodded vigorously. Probably out of respect for the top student's presence, the head of discipline didn't want to make a big deal of it. He just frowned at Mr. Lockwood and Barnaby's form tutor. You two handle this. After the head of discipline left, Mr. Lockwood took Rodney and me aside. You're still in contact with Barnaby? Mr. Lockwood asked me, clearly holding back his anger. No, I shook my head. He cornered me at the classroom door. Mr. Lockwood looked at Rodney. That's correct, Rodney confirmed my statement. Mr. Lockwood seemed to understand the head of discipline's intention and didn't press me further. Next time he comes around, go straight to a teacher. Leaving the office, I took Rodney to the infirmary to treat the wounds on his face. After finishing, I couldn't help but say, "You didn't need to fight someone like Barnaby." Looking at his injuries, I frowned again, "And now your face is in this state." He suddenly smiled. Looking up at me, his eyes bright. "This way, we're the same now." I was stunned for a moment. Then I realized he was referring to the marks on both our faces. I relaxed my brow and smiled along with him. Practice makes perfect. After writing 2 apology letters, I could almost publish a book. A few days later, the monthly exam results were out. The results were posted at the front, with a group of students gathered around to look. Suddenly, I heard Gladys Lamb exclaim, "Paula, you got full marks in English." Her words caused a stir, and all the classmates turned to look at me. I responded with a casual High school English was far easier than the English required for university entrance exams. Gladys came back, flipping through her little notebook, and showed me the scores she had written down. "You missed one subject, yet you still scored higher than 3 classmates in total." I quickly scanned my results. To get into Stanford, it was far from enough. I gripped my pen a little tighter. After the evening study session ended and the crowd dispersed, I finally walked up to the results board. Unsurprisingly, Rodney Quartermain was once again top of the year. The distance between him and me, separated by all the names on the results sheet, seemed insurmountable. I reached out and lightly touched the top position. One day, I told myself, I would see my name there. Since the incident of skipping exams, my mom and stepdad have become stricter with me. Every evening after school, they demand that I return home promptly. I certainly wouldn't be so naive as to think this is out of concern for me. They simply find it embarrassing to be contacted by school teachers. My stepdad has repeatedly called me a disgrace, then sprawls on the sofa, continuing his lazy, good-for-nothing ways. I've urged my mom countless times to divorce him, but each time she brushes it off with excuses. She always says, "What would I do if I got divorced?" It wasn't until I became an adult that I finally understood. 2 people who share a bed can't be of 2 different kinds. Since she married my stepdad, she was no longer entirely my mom. This evening when I returned home, the atmosphere felt strange. I had never seen my stepdad with such a gentle expression. He called out to me, "Paula, Dad has something to tell you." I suppressed my disgust and replied, "What?" Mom stood to the side, head lowered, looking somewhat guilty but unable to hide her excitement. "You're going to have a little brother," my stepdad said, staring at Mom's belly. "Aren't you happy?" I remained silent. Previously, Mom had only gotten pregnant when I was at university. Going back in time, things had changed. Surprisingly, my stepdad didn't dwell on my attitude. "Your mom and I have discussed it. You coming and going at all hours is affecting your mom. Why don't you board at school?" I let out a laugh. I'd be delighted. Getting away from this awful family was undoubtedly a good thing for me. After packing my things and moving into the school dormitory, Gladys Lamb was the first to express shock. "Paula, have you gone mad? Living in a dorm now, what if your roommates keep you up at night?" "It's fine, I'm a deep sleeper," I replied. Before we knew it, winter had arrived, and the city saw its first heavy snowfall in years. It snowed all night, leaving a thin layer on the ground. Many students rushed into the snow, jumping, playing, laughing, and chasing each other. It was at this moment that I truly felt the youth in my body and the hopeful heart beating in my chest. As evening study ended, I stood at the classroom door, looking up at the snowflakes falling in the night sky. Just as I was about to step into the snow, someone called out to me. It was Rodney Quartermain. I waited for him to continue, but he stopped beside me, hesitating to speak. He looked at me and handed me something. It was a white knitted scarf. "Paula, keep your spirits up." In the cold snowy night, a warmth spread from my fingertips, touching the scarf to my entire body. During the holiday break, I didn't have to rush out early and return late. Even though my stepfather disliked me, he couldn't find a reason to force me out. I stayed in my room studying, which gave him no opportunity to bother me. Since Mom remarried, I hadn't properly celebrated Christmas. It was either spent arguing or wandering alone in the cold. This time around, I was much calmer. I neither showed displeasure nor smiled. This winter didn't seem as cold as I remembered. This holiday was far less gloomy than in my memory. Mom was starting to show, and my stepfather's attitude had improved somewhat. Though I knew this was just a temporary facade, it was still better than before. The day before school started, I specifically set aside half a day to go to the shopping center to buy a pair of gloves. They were fluffy brown teddy bear style, looking cute and warm. After buying them, I hopped on the tube, riding to the station nearest Rodney's house. Then I sent him a message, "Are you home?" He replied instantly, "Yes." "Me, can you come out for a bit?" Rodney, "Sure." I waited at the tube station exit for a while and soon saw him striding over. He wore a long dark coat, tall with long legs, standing out in the crowd. "Is everything all right?" he asked. Was he worried I was in trouble? I shook my head, "Just bringing you a gift in return." Saying this, I handed him the paper box. Afraid he wouldn't accept such cute gloves, I specifically instructed, "Open it when you get home." He paused, then smiled gently. "All right." That evening, while packing for school, Mom pushed open my door. "Paula," she called my nickname. I continued packing without looking up. She stood beside me, hesitating for a long time before speaking. "Mom has some money here, take it for your living expenses at school." I finally stopped what I was doing. Looking at her hand holding the money, I pushed it back. "I don't want it. If I take it, it'll turn into me stealing his money again." I didn't hold back. She trembled, suddenly covering her face and crying softly. I frowned and stood up. I'm sorry." She kept repeating. I used to think Mom was a pitiful person, but I often forgot that pitiable people can also be detestable. Her weakness, passivity, low self-esteem, and lack of responsibility created the current situation. After crying enough, she stuffed the money into my hand, choking out, "Mom's sorry, this is from Mom's wages, take it, no one will dare say anything." In the end, I took the money. I took out a few notes, locked the rest in a drawer. Before leaving, I didn't want to owe them too much. Lying in bed that night, for the first time, I didn't fall asleep immediately. I couldn't say I was sad, just felt very stifled. Idly flipping through my phone, I saw a message from Rodney. "Rodney, thank you." My mood suddenly lightened considerably. Imagining his surprised expression when opening the gift, I couldn't help but smile. This night no longer seemed so unbearable. I closed my eyes and quickly fell asleep. The new term was progressing smoothly. My sudden academic improvement shocked some and aroused suspicion in others. There were even rumors circulating that I had cheated on the exams. However, it didn't cause me any real harm, so I didn't pay much attention to it. After all, this was just the beginning. I would prove myself gradually over time. Rodney Quartermain wore the gloves I had given him every day on his way home. They looked adorably out of place on a boy's hands, and as expected, he was teased by other lads. But he ignored them and continued to wear them. I couldn't help but smile secretly, feeling a hidden sweetness in my heart. None of them knew that I had given him those gloves. After another monthly test, spring finally arrived. My grades improved once again, pushing me into the top 5 in our year. Those who had previously spread rumors about my cheating gradually fell silent. Wilfred Lockwood, who had been observing my progress, called me in for a chat one day. He specifically instructed, "Don't ever skip exams again in the future." I nodded. "And no dating," he added. I nodded again. "In our class now, you and Rodney Quartermain are the ones I have the highest hopes for. But while he's been steadily at the top of the year, you're the dark horse that's come from behind. So you absolutely can't let your guard down." "I understand, thank you, sir." The 100-day countdown ceremony for our A-levels approached quickly. Just when I thought everything would proceed smoothly until graduation, a transfer student joined our class. It was none other than Meredith Newbolt, the troublemaker I had confronted before. When I saw her, I almost forgot to breathe. Meredith, however, pretended not to know me. After her self-introduction, she went straight to the back row and fell asleep. Rodney seemed to notice the change in my expression. "What's wrong?" he asked. I shook my head. After school, I encountered Barnaby Landon on my way back to the dormitory. "Paula, don't misunderstand. I'm not here to bother you," he said. Since Rodney had taught him a lesson last time, he indeed hadn't come looking for me again. "I know you're doing well in your studies now and only want to focus on learning. I won't disturb you," he said with a self-righteous air. "I just wanted to tell you about Meredith Newbolt." "What about her?" I asked. "Her parents forced her to go back to school. She agreed but specifically requested to be in your class. Her uncle works in the education department, so he pulled some strings to get her in." He paused. "I know you've had conflicts with her before, so be careful." I nodded expressionlessly and walked past him. I didn't need his reminder to know that Meredith was here for me. In the days that followed, I was constantly on guard. But strangely, she continued to pretend not to know me, sleeping at the back of the class every day. Yet I couldn't shake off a feeling of unease. The day before the exam, I checked my student ID and exam admission ticket. But when I arrived at the classroom the next day, I couldn't find them anywhere. "Did you leave them in the dormitory?" Gladys Lamb reminded me. With no other choice, I went back to check. While I was rummaging through my things inside, I suddenly heard a click outside the door. I quickly walked to the door and pulled hard. The door was locked. I didn't need to guess who had done it. "Meredith Newbolt!" I shouted. I couldn't see her through the door, but I heard her laughter. "Aren't you supposed to be the clever one?" she sneered. "If I'm not taking the exam, neither are you." I banged on the door, calling for help, but no one responded for a long time. I turned back to look for my phone, only to realize I had left it in the classroom. After a few minutes of blank panic, I suddenly heard hurried footsteps outside the door. "Paula, are you in the dormitory?" It was Gladys. A beam of light suddenly broke through the darkness, and I quickly responded, "I'm here." She tried to open the door. "The door's locked," I said. "I'll go get the key from the dorm manager." When the door finally opened, I let out a long sigh of relief. "Hurry up, we're about to be late," Gladys urged. Then I suddenly realized another problem. I still haven't found my student ID and exam ticket. "Rodney found them for you." As we ran out of the dormitory building, Rodney was standing at the entrance. He handed me my things. Seeing my confused expression, Gladys explained, "Meredith had thrown them in the bin. Rodney found them and sent me back to the dorm to find you." She looked furious. "Was it her who locked you in the dorm?" Rodney stared at me, also waiting for an answer. I had already regained my composure. "It's too complicated to explain now. I'll tell you after the exam." The 2-day exam passed without incident, successfully completed. Meredith Newbolt had indeed skipped the exam. She was nowhere to be found. After the exam, I went straight to Mr. Wilfred Lockwood. I recounted the entire saga of my grievances with Meredith from start to finish. "So last term when you missed the exam, it was because she was harassing you?" he asked. I lowered my head. "Yes." Mr. Lockwood remained silent for a moment. "Sir, actually. I understand. I'll handle this matter. You go back and focus on your studies." I nodded, not saying anything more, and turned to leave. As I walked out of the office, Rodney Quartermain was standing outside the door. I didn't know how long he'd been there. "Paula," he called out to me. In the evening, the distant sunset painted the sky in vibrant hues. The young man's features were hazy, but his eyes shone with startling brightness. "This won't happen again," he said, looking at me intently. "I promise you." I was slightly taken aback. I actually wanted to tease him a bit, to ask how he could guarantee that. But I decided against it. This lad could be incredibly straightforward at times, without much complexity when it came to emotions. Yet every word he spoke was utterly sincere. I nodded and smiled. "All right then." After that day, Meredith never returned to our class. I had thought Mr. Lockwood wouldn't pursue the matter further, but to my surprise, he went directly to the headmaster to confront the issue. He presented Meredith's past behavior and the CCTV footage from the dormitory corridor to the headmaster. Her family did indeed have influence, but once the matter was brought to light, no one dared to protect her anymore. The exam results came out quickly. Once again, I shocked everyone. I ranked second in the year, just 1 point behind Rodney Quartermain. With the top 2 students in the year both from our class, Mr. Lockwood was beaming with pride, encouraging other classmates to learn from me. The story of an underachiever rising to second in the year was so legendary that many students in the school came to know about me. Some even came to our classroom to see me in person. I even received a letter because of this. At first, I thought it was a love letter, but when I opened it, I found 3 or 4 pages asking for advice on study methods. It was quite bizarre. In the evening after school, I got up to leave as usual, the last one to do so. But when I turned around, Rodney was still there. He was staring at me intently, his lips pressed into a thin line. "Someone wrote you a letter?" he asked. I looked at him, amused, and joked, "Have a look. Maybe you can even write back." His lips remained tightly pressed, his face expressionless. But after spending so much time together, I keenly sensed that he seemed a bit unhappy. "Go on, have a look," I urged. Rodney reluctantly took the letter. After flipping through a couple of pages, he smiled too. "Why don't you discuss study methods with him?" I suggested. Rodney didn't say anything. He lowered his head, his long fingers folding the letter neatly and placing it back in the envelope before handing it back to me. Then he suddenly spoke. "It's my birthday today." I didn't react immediately. "I haven't made a wish yet," he said. "But I want to share a wish with you." Under the bright lights, the young man's gaze was sincere as he spoke words that were naive yet earnest. I was suddenly touched by the atmosphere. "Then let's make a wish together," I said. He nodded, and we both closed our eyes. "What did you wish for?" he asked me. "If I tell you, it won't come true," I said, smiling at him. "Happy birthday." Securing the second place in the year wasn't as easy as it seemed. Through several mock exams, my results fluctuated, but I managed to stay within the top 5. Rodney Quartermain, however, remained the unshakable top student of the year. My competitive nature led me to observe Rodney frequently, trying to understand his study methods. Gladys Lamb caught me a few times. She leaned in, smirking. "Paula, don't tell me you've got a crush on Rodney?" Fearing her big mouth, I hastily warned, "No way. Don't you dare spread such nonsense." As late spring approached, the weather began to warm up. One day during lunch break, a message came from the porter's lodge saying someone was looking for me. I hastily threw on a jacket and headed towards the school gates. Stepping outside, I saw my mom. She was wearing a black dress and carrying bags of snacks. Upon seeing me, she looked somewhat uneasy. Her presence surprised me, of course. But what truly shocked me was her figure. How could she be so thin at 6 months pregnant? She slowly walked towards me, blinking nervously. "Paula, can we talk?" If it were the 17-year-old Paula Sumner, I would have turned and left without a second thought. But standing before her now was the 25-year-old Paula. I calmly walked with her into the cafe across from the school. "Paula, She lowered her head. "I'm divorced." I was taken aback. Of all the reasons I imagined for her visit, this was the least expected. Then, choking back tears, she recounted the divorce process. After I started boarding school, she and my stepfather had a brief period of contentment. But soon enough, the man revealed his true colors, going out drinking and gambling again. Emboldened by her pregnancy, Mom found the courage to confront him a few times. At first, he restrained himself for the baby's sake. But the last time, he came home drunk. She had barely said 2 words when he started smashing things and shoving her, pushing her down the stairs. She miscarried. The pain of losing her child and having her feelings trampled finally woke this woman up. Weak and timid as she was, she could no longer endure it and filed for divorce. I listened quietly, suddenly overcome by a sense of life's surrealism. In my previous life, no matter how I tried to persuade her, she firmly believed she could spend her life with my stepfather. This time around, she got pregnant earlier, saw through the man's true nature sooner, and managed to cut her losses in time. Like a butterfly effect, each link revealed the mysteriousness of fate. Paula, this happened a month ago. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to distract you. I replied calmly, your affairs don't concern me at all, let alone distract me. She was stunned, her eyes immediately welling up with tears. Afternoon classes are about to start, I interrupted. I don't have time for snacks either, you should take them back. With that, I left without looking at her again. Only I knew that speaking those words brought me no satisfaction whatsoever. Each step I took felt heavier than the last. That afternoon, for the first time, I lost focus in class. I remember when I was very young, one winter night, I developed a high fever. It was snowing outside, and my dad hadn't returned from his night shift. Mom wrapped me up and rushed me to the hospital. Unable to get a taxi, she trudged through the snowy night, one foot after another. Her embrace was so warm then, warm enough to make me believe it would be my lifelong support. Until Dad passed away, and she remarried, becoming someone else's wife, then someone else's mother. It would be a lie to say I never hated her. But now that she's divorced, is it really right for me to hold on to past resentments? After school, Rodney Quartermain and I were once again the last to leave. This seemed to have become our unspoken routine. But this time, I didn't discuss studies with him, nor did we talk about our future and dreams. I just asked him, have you ever hated someone? He paused for a moment, then shook his head. I asked again, what if you had mixed feelings of love and hate for this person? He looked at me quietly. Actually, before, I didn't quite like his expressionless, calm gaze. It felt as if I had no secrets before him, as if he could see right through me. Now, however, I've come to appreciate this look. Without saying anything, it brings peace to my heart. Just do what makes you feel comfortable, he said. Suddenly, I felt relieved. If A-levels were my regret, family relationships would probably be another. Mom's starting over, so why am I not willing to give our mother-daughter relationship another chance? So that night, I called Mom. I said, Mom, you made the right choice to divorce. Don't be too sad, take care of yourself. She finally cried on the phone. Before hanging up, she said, Paula, study hard. Mom won't hold you back anymore. Practice makes perfect. After numerous mock exams, I finally overcame my nervousness. So when the actual exam day arrived, I was surprisingly calm. Rodney Quartermain and I were assigned to the same exam center. Before entering, we stood side by side at the school gate for a moment. He suddenly called out to me, Paula. I turned around. After the exam, he said, with an unusual hint of awkwardness, I have something to tell you. What a coincidence, I have something to tell you too. He paused, then smiled. As the exam ended, I walked out of the hall. The crowd surged forward, every student around me brimming with uncontrollable excitement and joy. I followed the flow of people out into the corridor, turned the corner, and was greeted by the warm glow of the setting sun. A gentle summer breeze caressed my face. I closed my eyes, feeling the evening sunlight warm me like never before. Stepping out of the school gates, I spotted Rodney. I hurried to catch up with him. He turned around in the bustling crowd, the moment seeming to overlap with several past memories. Rodney, I called out, slightly out of breath but with an irrepressible smile on my face. Ignoring the stares of those around us, I shouted, I want to tell you that you'll definitely get into Harvard. He stared at me, dumbfounded. I took a couple of steps closer to him. So, what did you want to tell me? He looked down at me, his eyes filled with warmth and a gentle smile. I could hardly believe he was capable of such an expression. He stepped forward, lowering his head to whisper in my ear. Amidst the scent of mint, I heard his secretive yet solemn voice. I wanted to tell you. I like you. In the end, following our original dreams, he went to Harvard, while I chose Stanford. Rodney finally asked the question that had been puzzling him, why did you insist on Stanford? It's a personal goal, I replied. After all, in my previous life's chaotic journey, Stanford had given me a direction to move forward. Oh, and I agreed to be with Rodney. We spent almost the entire holiday together. His embrace was shy yet steady. This was the passion of 18, intense, impulsive, full of courage. The day before term started, Rodney and I watched the sunset from the London Eye. I suddenly spoke up. I had a dream where I was still that struggling student, going to an ordinary university. We never crossed paths, let alone got together. I waited, curious to see how Rodney would respond. Instead, he asked, "What if the timeline continued further?" I was taken aback. "If one day we met again, perhaps there would still be a chance for us to be together," he continued. I had never thought of it that way. "If we met again, would you still fall in love with me?" I asked foolishly. At that moment, the London Eye reached its peak. The sun had dipped below the horizon, the sky a blend of deep blue and orange. He chuckled softly and leaned in slowly. As his lips met mine, I heard his answer, as reverent as a vow. "I would."